Hey, welcome to the Peet Reet Show. We've got a doozy for you today.
Oh, big one, that's for sure.
Now, I did a little detective Secret Service work myself.
You did?
Yeah, it took me a lot of digging and communication, and I had to call the NSA, but I finally found this guy.
You're not in prison, so that's okay.
I think you're going to find the show really interesting, especially around the election, the U.S. election, because this man, Dan Bongino, who is the Renegade Republican. So if you go on Facebook, you can find him. He's got a lot to say about Hillary Clinton. And we're going to start off, first of all, by saying welcome to the show, Dan.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tell us what a Secret Service agent is first. I mean, I think everybody's got an idea, but give us a little more detail.
Yeah, there's so many misconceptions out there, and they're understandable. I mean, Americans, Canadians, we're going to work. They don't, they don't get on Wikipedia and research every single role the Secret Service has. I think In the Line of Fire, that famous Clint Eastwood movie, really good movie, I still love, by the way.
Yeah.
That really influenced a lot of people, and most people associate the Secret Service with that, protection role with the president, and that is a significant, portion of what they do, but the reality is it's not the highest percentage of agents, let's say, are not allocated towards protection. They're actually allocated towards criminal investigative work. So that's kind of a misconception about the Secret Service, that they're all involved in protection. They're not. The overwhelming majority are in field offices around the world. We have a couple in Canada, too, up in upstate New York as well. And they're doing investigations into counterfeit. They do computer crimes now, so we get a lot of these tragic not to be a buzzkill, but these child pornography cases, which are awful to work. That would do a lot of that. A lot of the financial crimes, credit card fraud cases. And another portion of what we do is protective intelligence, so threat cases towards the president. So yeah, it's a great job. I used to joke with people, it's the closest thing to being famous without anybody knowing who you are. So that's
especially behind those glasses.
So you don't have...
I had the Maui Jims. There's a myth out there that we prefer Ray-Bans. I'm sure they're great. I never had Ray-Bans. My wife bought me Maui Jims early, and I've had them ever since. So yeah,
so you
glasses all the time if you can.
So you really didn't have to run alongside the president's car for miles.
No, that's only in the movies. We call them flankers, like people who will run alongside the car, but that's really only done on Inauguration Day. And the dirty little secret of the Secret Service is that that's a ceremonial assignment. Yes, you're of course you're there with your weapon and you're there to do protection, but to be a flanker on Inauguration Day, when the president gets out, when they're inaugurated, they walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, they wave those iconic pictures with the Capitol in the background. They will pick 4 agents, and it's really considered a plum assignment to be what's called a flanker and to run alongside the car. And the reality is, it's good because you're a part of history. You're in every single picture. I did one at the front of the New York Daily News. I have it framed. Matter of fact, I'm looking at my office right now. The New York New York Daily News cover, the day after the inauguration, it reads, "We're fearless," and it's a fold-over cover, and there's me in the lower left-hand corner. So, being a flanker is just really a ceremonial thing. But no one runs along the car anymore. I mean, what kind of an idiot does that? Just get in the car.
And be safer.
Yeah, I mean, we have this tank, that could take probably a nuclear explosion. Hey, I got an idea. Why don't you guys run outside? It's just dumb. It only looks good in the movies, so that's not how it really works.
So listen, you were a New York City cop. I mean, was your ambition to be a Secret Service?
No, I actually wasn't. I wanted to be in the FBI. I was a graduate student in neuropsychology at the City University of New York, and I wanted to be a profiler with the FBI. That was my primary interest. That's what I was studying for, and it was my father, really, who had hurt his back early. I have to belabor the point or get long-winded on, but he had hurt himself. He wanted to be a Secret Service or an FBI agent. He said to me, Dan, listen, you really need to check this Secret Service job out. It looks great, and the FBI sounds great too, but I think you should at a minimum put in an application. And as it turned out, at the time, they were just very short in the New York field office of agents who could have a dialogue with psychologists using the lingo. We talk to psychologists all the time because people threaten the president. Sometimes they're committed, sometimes they're not. But it was really tough to go in and talk to a psychologist who's talking about EMAs, and you're like, well, what's an EMA? it's an early morning awakening, which is a sign of potential depression. And if you don't, if you're not a graduate student or a student in psychology, you may not know that or be able to explain it. So long and short of it was the Secret Service hired me quick. I mean, within about 6 months, I was in the door, so they just beat the FBI to the punch. That's how I wound up there.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to find out what your Secret Service role was with Hillary Clinton. Next on the Peet Reet Show.
Peet Reet here, and we're talking with Secret Service agent Dan Bongino. And I definitely want to know what it was like to work for Hillary Clinton.
Oh, he'd love to tell us that.
It was horrible. And, I'm not the kind of guy who does these, like, Kitty Kelly, unauthorized biographies and opens his mouth about this stuff. I completely understand, and I sympathize with your audience. Many who are probably liberal-leaning or, Democrats or whatever, that's fine, who may say, well, why would you open your mouth as a former Secret Service agent about the personal characteristics of someone? Well, you know what? I usually don't, but in this case, I found her to be so dangerous to our functioning constitutional republic in the United States that I felt the need to speak out about it. She's just a really terrible person. And I mean, I could go down a litany of examples of things she did to damage the Secret Service's role with local police officers. She never wanted to see the cops around when I was in Long Island, New York.
So you're saying she doesn't like cops? She doesn't like Secret Service?
No, I mean, I can't get in her head and say who she. All I can say is what I saw. I mean, it'd be very dangerous for me to say what she likes and doesn't like. But based on what I saw, it was grossly irresponsible, her actions. And she never understood what the economist Thomas Sowell would call second-order effects. She would say, hey, listen, we don't want to see these cops around. Our staff would come out. It would cause a whole big problem. We'd have to, you're talking to 20-year cops. They're just trying to do their job. You're like, hey, can you move over a little bit? It got to be really uncomfortable. This went on over. By the way, I was guest hosting for a radio show, a national radio show down in the States not that long ago. And I brought this up on the air. And just so you know, like, there's bona fides for this. At least 30 or 40 people who were cops in the exact area I'm talking about called the show to get on the air and said, I was one of those guys that was told to, like, go hide. And it's just really irresponsible stuff. And there were patterns of behavior, mistreatment of people, mistreatment of cops, that just spoke to someone who has very poor judgment. And I think, as we've seen with past presidents who failed, that judgment and leadership are the two biggest components you need. It's not necessarily intellectual bona fides, contrary to popular belief. Some of the least intelligent presidents based on IQ scores in American history have been the most successful. So, the leadership is bad and the judgment's bad.
So do you think that there's going to be a lot of cops that don't vote for Hillary?
None that know her, I can tell you that. I mean, like I said, I worked with her for a good substantial period of time. I wasn't on her detail. I was assigned to that office in Long Island. But what happened out there, she was running for Senate in those two counties, Nassau and Suffolk County in New York. That's where she was struggling in the Senate race because Rick Lazio was running against her and was a congressman from out there. So she was out there all the time. So my experience with her is not based on a couple happenstance moments where I ran into her. It's a deep body of experience. And it wasn't all bad. I don't want to make it out like she was this constant terror, always screaming and yelling at people. But it was bad enough, and it was repeated enough to show a really, really poor sense of judgment and an elitist kind of snob attitude, as I said on a news channel not that long ago. And I think it really reflects in her behavior and the way she treats the government, too. I mean, these scandals happen. You may not think they're important if you're a Hillary supporter. That's fine, but you can't deny they happen. I mean, the email, Benghazi, all this, there's actual dead bodies from Benghazi. I mean, the email server actually existed. Whether you think they're important or not is up to you, but her elitist attitude applies to her treatment of the government, too, and I think that's why she's so dangerous.
So how does it get downplayed? I mean, you see she was subpoenaed to produce those emails and that server, and she didn't do it. And she's a lawyer. She knows better. She knows what's there. How can the American people truly support somebody who has basically broken the law?
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. And they keep throwing out her her acolytes this silly talking point that, oh, she didn't break the law because Jim Comey, who's the FBI director, of course, said so. Well, that's not what he said. I mean, did you even listen to the speech? Matter of fact, he laid out an entire criminal case against her. And then he said no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute the case. That's an opinion. That's not a, that's an opinion, by the way, which most of the FBI agents working the case, who are now turning into whistleblowers, don't agree with. But saying she didn't break the laws is just nonsense. It's just not true. And, I just don't know. I know we have a big problem, in the United States with the media. I mean, we've had an enormous problem with a biased media. I've had to run for office myself where they actually fabricate stories. I mean, there's a famous YouTube clip out there. It's been viewed millions of times of me going DEFCON 1 on a media guy. You can listen to it yourself. I mean, that's me. I mean, I don't take any guff from these guys. And they cover for her, and they always have. And it's, they're the fourth branch of government, in the United States. And that's the shame of it.
And we're going to come back in a minute on the Peet Reet Show with more of Dan Bongino. It's so interesting. It's incredible. Stay with us.
And we are talking to the Renegade Republican, Dan Bongino. And Dan, you talked about how nasty. Give me an example of what nasty would be, and then relate it to how we see her on TV and in the debates, that's not the person you're actually seeing.
Well, I'll give you a story. A guy fed me not that long ago. Since I've left the Secret Service, a lot of sources come forward, and they confide in me because they trust me with the information. They feel like it needs to get out there. And, by the way, that's a story in and of itself. I mean, I disagree on just about every issue with Barack Obama. I mean, I can't think of an issue where we share any kind of convergence at all. But Barack Obama was a very nice guy, personally, to me. So was his family, and I've never, ever said otherwise. Matter of fact, in my first book, I was very complimentary about him. Same thing with Bill Clinton. I mean, he had his moral picadillos and failings. I don't think there's any question about that. But again, he was never rude to me, neither was George W. Bush. Don't you find it a little odd that these hundreds of whistleblowers, FBI, diplomatic security, Secret Service, military people, they're all coming forward and giving the exact same story about Hillary? Again, I'll say to your listeners, you can discount this. That's fine. That's up to you. I'm not here to tell you who to vote for, if you even, if you can vote, or who you should support or speak out against. You're all adults. You'll figure it out on your own. But I am asking you the question. Don't you think it's a little odd that the most liberal president in American history, you would think conservative Secret Service agents and military people would be coming out left and right to bash Obama, and there's nobody out there? Nobody says anything. Because they understand, hey, I don't agree with the guy politically, but he was a decent guy. But yet you have hundreds of people giving the exact same story about Hillary. Here's one that just speaks to her character totally. How she's always unnecessarily rude and obnoxious. There's this guy, it was a holiday. I don't want to say which one because it'll give away, when this person was working. And it was about 10 minutes to midnight. They got in late. And he was giving the holiday greeting, whatever that greeting was. And instead of just saying like the old man did, who walked out before, Bill Clinton, oh, thanks a lot, just say, she looks at her watch, she taps her watch twice, gives an uncomfortable pause just to make sure there's maximum uncomfortability, and she's like, nope, not yet, you're wrong. Just to call BS on him. And he was like, really? I mean, I'm just trying to be nice. That's the kind, you may say, oh, that's not a big deal. No, it is. It happens all the time. It's just who she is. Say, how dare you talk to me and wish me happy Halloween or whatever. That's just the person she is. She just feels like you're an imbecile. You shouldn't talk to her. She's the she's the queen, and that's it. I mean, that's just who she is, and it carries over into her treatment of government agencies and subordinates, and that's why she's so dangerous.
Now, if you're sitting there watching the debates, and I'm sure you watched all three intently.
Yeah.
What do you see there? What is that? A puppet?
I mean, she's up there, and if you listen to and you read the emails that were exposed in the WikiLeaks, dumps, you'll see that even her staff agrees that she's just very robotic. I mean, she's fed talking points. And I just remember behind the scenes how they would talk to her. And I did kind of jokingly one time on my podcast, I did an Obama versus Obama debate. It was kind of a joke. It was Obama's own words where he debated himself on an issue. I mean, literally, he would say, I didn't edit it or anything. It was just Obama taking the exact opposite position. and it was among like 4 or 5 different issues. Hillary does the exact same thing. It's like she doesn't really stand for, even her staff in the emails, they say she has no guiding principles. Her guiding principles are power. So if, perfect example is the TPP. I mean, cross-border trade deals are a big deal right now. Trump's brought attention to it. She called it the gold standard. Now, in common parlance, when you and I would talk, gold standard means good. I mean, you don't say, like, to your landscaper or something, like, hey, you're the gold standard of landscapers, you're fired. I mean, gold standard means good, right? Like,
exactly.
Everyone gets that.
Right.
But this is the Clintons. Like, they always have this mystical way of using language in their own way. She said it was the gold standard of trade deals. Now she's against it. I mean, this is Hillary. She doesn't stand for anything. She only stands for what the focus group tells her to stand for.
Okay, so you were a cop for years. You could tell when somebody's lying to you most of the time, I'm sure. Do you think she's lying to the American public?
Oh, God, yeah. That's the easiest question you've asked the whole time. I can't tell you anything she's telling the truth about other than her name. Like, answer, remember in the SATs or you have to sign your name and you get like 400 points when I was a kid? I mean, sometimes that was the only question people got right, their names. That's Hillary. Like, okay, we pronounce your name for the record, Hillary Rodham Clinton. Okay, the rest is all lies. And she has no penchant for honesty whatsoever. She doesn't mean anything she says. I mean, again, you don't have to believe me. I'm just asking your audience, because you can't ignore a question. You can ignore an assertion, but you can't ignore a question. I'm really posing a serious question to you. If you think I'm making this up, why are all of these people coming out, speaking out against only her? And why do her staff in leaked emails say the exact same thing? That she just can't tell the truth ever. Because she can't. It's true. That's the answer.
All right, Dan, we're going to take a quick break. We're talking to Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent with Hillary Clinton, and I want to talk a little bit about the media when we come back on the Peet Reet channel.
It's Peet Reet here with Renegade Republican and former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino.
You know what? I got to ask you, Dan, do you fear for your life? I mean, do you have to take an oath when you're Secret Service? You're not supposed to talk about stuff like this?
No, you don't. I mean, I generally try not to, especially when I feel like it would damage the relationship between the Secret Service and the protectee. It's why I've always hesitated to comment on anything personal about Obama. But you do take an oath to defend the Constitution, and that's precisely why I feel the need to speak out, as many others do as well, about Hillary Clinton. I really think that the constitutional republic as we know it, that we now know as the United States of America, as we know it today, is legitimately in danger from a Clinton presidency. This would be an absolute disaster. And, I think they obviously have no problem getting revenge on their political opponents. I mean, they've gone after people in the past. I mean, Hillary Clinton said it as much, calling Bill Clinton's accusers when it came to some inappropriate conduct, trailer trash, and failed cabaret singers. I mean, this is who they are. So I think a lot of us are quietly hoping, no, I shouldn't say quietly, but hoping that she doesn't win because, yeah, there's always a bit of a fear factor with her. Is she going to come after people? But I'm not worried about anything physical. It's more just her trying to destroy people's reputations.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I mean, Reed and I both come from media and news.
Yeah.
And, I mean, when I was first in news, we were always told, report the facts, keep your own biases out of it. And, I mean, I remember getting taken in the room with the news director saying, hey, keep your biases out of this. This is what you got to report. You got to report the facts, and especially at election time. And I look at American media right now, left wing, which is mostly all of them, and I cannot believe that nobody says, how come they only ask Trump these questions? How come they're only on him about the bad things he's done? How come they're not bashing Hillary? And in the debate, up until the last one, the first two, they were definitely after him. I mean, Anderson Cooper asked the same question twice about, the magic words he was using as he was walking out of that bus. Never do they attack Hillary, and it's so obvious. Why don't the American people see that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the story I always used, when you talk to liberals in the United States, and they'll tell you, oh, there's no such thing as media bias, which I promptly laugh off because I've run for office. I was a Secret Service agent dealing with liberals in the press pool, and I saw how they do what they do, and some of it hurt me. I mean, but the one story that always kind of kicks people in the teeth is, I remember when I ran for the United States Senate and the Washington Post, which is a liberal rag in my opinion, they called me to do an endorsement meeting. They were going to endorse a candidate in the race. Now, I was under no illusions that they were going to endorse me. I was running as a Republican. But I figured, what the heck? I mean, I'll do this phone interview. How bad can it get? It got really bad. I mean, it wound up devolving into an argument with this guy on the phone who wouldn't even accept basic facts as reality. I mean, I remember him saying to me, well, you're proposing, tax cuts, and we all know that George W. Bush tax cuts in the United States cost a boatload of money to the United States Treasury. I said, well, that's factually incorrect. I was like, what? Do you not know that? And I actually sent him an article linking to the United States government's own Treasury data, and he still would not accept it. And I'm thinking, this isn't bias. This is just stupid. I mean, you're just saying something that's factually incorrect, like 2 + 2 = 5, because I really think it, and I'm praying. And I tell people this story all the time. And then he had the gall to write in the piece that I didn't know what I was talking about. And I was like, this is unreal. Like, that's the media. They are so biased that they can't even accept basic arithmetic as being reality. And I'm telling you, folks, it's that bad. It really is. I've dealt with them for a long time. I've had to make up stories on me. And then the funny thing is, they make up a story, and then they ask you to provide evidence that the story is false, and if you don't, they're going to run with the fake story. And you're thinking, this can't be real. Like, is this a bad movie or a nightmare? But
it's all about money, right? It's all about money. I had the opportunity to go to the Trump rally in Buffalo, and I went there specifically to see what the media was doing, because you hear it, right? And I listened to what Trump had to say. Now, as a media person, I'm always separating, at least I am, I don't know about over there, but separating policy. Who's got the policy? Who's got the right idea? Who's got common sense, right? And I listened to what he had to say, and it was all common sense. When that came out the next day and that evening in the media, totally taken out of context. Yeah. And the big thing was, instead of saying 9/11, he said 7/11. And you look at Hillary, who has no policy, just repeats the same rhetoric over and over again, saying we've done this, we've done that, and the same policies that Obama had and that she's had and her husband's had for 30 years that don't work. And everybody sits there and goes, mm-hmm. But Trump's bad. He said some bad words.
Yeah.
I already make this argument to people all the time. I mean, are we trying to be objective? I mean, if you're not, then this is a useless conversation. If you're already convinced Hillary's the Messiah, then don't waste my time and don't waste anyone else's. But if we're trying to be objective analysis requires a set of principles. So let's say, you believe in economic growth and tax rates, growth-oriented tax rates. Well, who's your guy? Well, your guy would be Trump. And I mean, if your way to get off him being the guy is, well, I don't like that he mentioned this to Billy Bush in an interview. Okay, fine, but you're voting on emotion then. You're not voting on policy.
Exactly.
People would have that conversation, and they don't do it. They get so caught up in the personalities that they're willing to almost like drink poison and hope their friend dies. I mean, it's just sick. It's really deranged what people do in elections.
I think this is probably one of the most dangerous elections for the world, for America, for us here in Canada that has ever been, I think. I really do.
I wouldn't disagree with you, unfortunately. I'm afraid if Trump wins that, the left is just, they're talking about challenging an election. I think the left is just not going to accept it. And that's always dangerous in a democratic society.
Well, Dan, we thank you for stopping by and giving us some insight. And you know what? Promise us that you'll talk to us after the election.
Yeah, you got it. No problem.
Awesome. I could listen to you all day because it's just so informative. And it gives a little background of what we don't here in Canada get to, aren't a part of.
So, all right. So now educate everybody. Tell them how they can find you and the information that you're providing.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it. My website's Bongino, my last name, Bongino.com. Real simple. And all my social media sites, everything's on there. So check out more about me there if you're interested. I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan.
And, send some of that warm weather from Florida up here, okay?
Yeah, I wish listen, man, I'm bogarting this for myself. I'm sorry. You know where to find me.
Hey, that's not fair.
All right. We've been talking to Dan Bongino, former Secret Service agent with Hillary Clinton, giving us some insight on the election and some insight on Hillary, which
wow,
is amazing. Listen, God bless you all. We'll see you next time on the Peet Reet Show.